Hello everyone, welcome to next training session tutorial video in the series of API testing, and in this session we are going to have a look at authentications using rest assured. So let's see what we would deal with in this session. We would see how we specify the auth, we will see basic auth, we will see form based auth, OAuth, and in the end we will also see a post request. So it's going to be a mixture of authentication and the post request. So let's get started. So the first topic is how do we specify the authentication. If you are not aware of different authentication mechanism, then if I begin with basic auth, let me explain to you that basic auth is nothing but simple username and password. You may have also seen this in API at times, wherein username and password are base 64 encoded, separated by colon, but this is a scheme which is used sparingly because it's not very safe from security perspective. Now, when it comes to rest assured, there are different ways to specify the authentication, and let's see what they are. So the first method which I have in the test class REST API test 3 is specify auth, wherein authentication can be specified using a method called auth. We have seen given in past, so how we change the method is given.auth, and since we are using basic auth in couple of next examples, we can say basic auth and then specify the credentials, which could be whatever username and password you have, and then rest of the API. Now the API which I have mentioned in this example is not new. We have seen this in past as well, and this API does not require any authentication, but in case the API you are testing needs basic auth, then you can specify using auth and the basic APIs. Now this is one way to specify authentication, that is in each request authentication mechanism can be specified. Another way is to specify in a setup, and we have seen that our setup class is core API test, and if I bring control on this, then on the setup we can specify authentication as rest assured dot authentication. Let me bring this also, and if it is basic, then basic followed by username and password. But since we do not really need authentication for all of the requests or all of the tests which we have in different test classes, I would comment it out. But this is one way to specify authentication on the base class setup, so you don't have to repeat it every time in each different class. So these are two different ways to specify authentication. Now let's see how we can carry out some tests using basic auth. Now when it comes to basic auth, there are two different ways. We have preemptive basic auth, and then we have challenged basic auth. Preemptive is something wherein we let's say ourselves specify authentication mechanism before the server to which request is being sent to ask for it. So this is more like, proactively specifying the authentication mechanism. The advantage of this approach is that it reduces the number of requests or the additional connections which are required, because in case of challenged basic auth, only when server asks for the credentials, then they are supplied. So there are more requests required when challenged basic auth is used. Now let's see an example for this. I found one example online for HTTP watch, and I'm going to show you this, how this is. Let me open it in incognito window, and here we go. Yes, so this is HTTP watch website. HTTP watch is one tool to observe the network request and response, and on this URL we have a small utility to display image, and when I click on this button, then you would see a basic auth prompt, and we can enter username as HTTP watch and a different password each time to see the image. So if I click on this and if I enter HTTP watch and password as whatever and hit enter, then we have this image being displayed. Now if I enter a different username, so I will not enter HTTP watch as username, something else, and hit enter. So you see the password, the auth prompt keeps coming back, because as long as HTTP watch is not entered as username, it would not be accepted by the server to which this request is being sent to. So if I say cancel here, well, you see a broken image. Now let me show the network tab for this, and let's see what happens when we request the image. So you see there's a get request going here, and now I will specify the right username and any password and hit enter. So what we have is we get a 200 for this, and in the response, so we get a response with couple of headers, and there is also a cookie I have seen. Yes, so in the response we have this cookie which has got last password, and I had entered some random characters, and this is the password which is being displayed here. Now let's do this from rest assured. So this is the test which preempted basic auth, which means we would proactively specify the authentication here. And how we do this? Well, the mechanism is more or less same as the previous example. That is, we use auth, and then we use another API called preemptive, followed by basic, what we have seen above. And the basic takes the username and password. And then what I'm doing is I'm sending a GET request to this API, which we saw a while ago, and then I'm logging all of the cookies, and then I'm asserting that last password cookie is equal to the password which I'm sending. But where is the password value coming from? So this test preemptive basic auth is actually a data-driven test. I'm using data provider from TestNG. By the way, if you're new to Java, then please first see my Java tutorials, and I'm going to commit this new test class as well on my GitHub account, so you can browse through, download the project and try it out yourself. Now let's see the data provider. What this data provider does is plain TestNG data provider, which returns two-dimensional object array, and it has got two elements here. So the first element is the wrong username, because we know that HTTP watched the right username, and as password what I'm doing is I'm generating one UUID. And the second element in the array is HTTP watch, which is right username, and then again I'm sending a random string as password. So test method invokes this data provider and then collects username and password here. So this test is run by give one username and password twice, because our array has two elements. So first it runs it for wrong username and password, this one, and then it runs it for right username and password. Let's execute it. So we had one run which is a failure, another run which is green as expected. The failure one says the wrong name username, and the green one says the preemptive one. But let's see first the outcome of the green test run. So this is right here, and we were logging the cookie. So this is the cookie which is being logged here, last password. So the cookie was found here, and then assertion worked. However, the case where the test fails with the wrong username, we just see that one assertion failed and no cookie defined in the response, and we do not have any cookie being locked because we did not supply right credentials, and application did not respond to us with a cookie in the response we had seen earlier. So this was about using preemptive basic auth. Now if you want to use challenge basic auth, then this is as simple as not specifying preemptive, and then this becomes challenged basic auth. All right, let's see next. Next we would see a post request. We have not seen post request so far. So the post request is not very different than get request in terms of the syntax. The request itself is going to be very different because it would create a new resource, but the syntax remains more or less same in terms of we are using again given, then we have body here, because what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new resource. So I need to specify the body for this request, and the body is a JSON element, and how I've specified this is using a JSON map. So I just named this as JSON map. It's a simple map with the key and value pairs. So the key is name, the name is Selenium test, and the value is key is name, value is Selenium test, and another key is job, and the value is QA. Now what I've done here is I'm using the API which we had seen in past as well from requests, and I'm going to close this instance and show you the one from request. Yes, so here I have the post request, and what it does is it takes username as a name, and the value of the name, job, and the value of the job, and then creates a resource. So like the get request, we have changed changed, not changed, we have chained different methods here. So it begins with given, then body takes different arguments. Here I'm using the map, which is an object, so it control goes here on the object definition, but body can also take, for example, input stream. It can also take a file, it can also take byte, it can also just take a string. So I could have as well specified this entire JSON as a string instead of a map. And then syntactic sugar when, then post to which API, this API, and then we validate that we have right status code, which is HTTP 2.1, because a new resource is created. Then we log the body, and then we extract the response. We had seen extracting response in previous example as well. So this response is stored in response object here, and then there's an assertion happening using hamcrest, which is assert that the value of response, not the response value of the path which we get as part of the response. So we can extract different elements of the response, and we are extracting here the path element is greater than 0. So for example, if I run this, let me comment this out and let me just execute the request. We will see what we get as logging mechanism here, because we are logging the body. So you see here, it logs, it creates a resource, and it guesses body as ID, some string, and then timestamp for created at. And this is what we are asserting here. We say that assert that the path ID on the response is greater than 0, because we know that there are other resources as well, so it cannot be 0. Now what I had to do here was I had to get the integer value of this string element 439, which is why I had to use method integer dot value of from integer class, and then we compare this, that this is greater than 0. So if I run this, test run would be green again. Here we go. And for example, if I had made some other assertion which would not be true, for example, if I would change the assertion to something else, then it would fail. For example, if I give here 1000 and run this again, then we should see a failure, provided ID is less than 1000. Yeah, you see the ID is 792, which is less than 1000. So we get an assertion that value greater than 1000 was expected, but we got 792, which is obviously not greater than 1000. So I would bring 0 back, and this would make the test green again. So this was sending a simple post request. What else? This is all in this session. We would see some more examples of rest assured on next session, and if you find this session educational, then please hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Bye bye.